3 minutes. That is all this takes. Every single morning, the moment consciousness returns and the body begins to wake, something extraordinary is happening inside the hips, along the spine, and deep within the small muscles of the hands, and almost no one is paying attention to it. Doctors see the consequences every day. The patient who can no longer open a jar. The person who grabs the wall just to stand up straight. The back that seizes before breakfast is even made. And when the history is taken, when the questions are asked, the answer almost always traces back to the same invisible window. Those first 3 minutes of the morning handled the wrong way. Every single day, for years. What makes this so quietly dangerous is that it does not hurt right away. It does not announce itself. It builds, slowly, silently, until one ordinary morning the body simply cannot do what it used to do. This video is going to change the way those 3 minutes look. And if the final point is something that gets watched until the end, it may be the most important thing seen all year. Here is what is going to be covered. What actually happens to the hips, spine, and grip during the night while the body is asleep. Why the morning is the single most vulnerable and the single most powerful window for joint health. The common morning habits that are slowly damaging the spine without any warning. What grip strength is really measuring. And why doctors use it to predict far more than hand strength alone. The mistake that almost every person over 50 makes within the first 60 seconds of waking up. And a simple 3-minute habit that takes no equipment, no gym, and no special ability, just the right knowledge. Stay until the end, because the final point is the one most people completely miss, and it connects everything together in a way that makes the whole picture clear. Let us start with what the body is actually doing while asleep, because this is where the story begins. During sleep, the body does something remarkable. The spine decompresses. Throughout the day, gravity presses down on the vertebrae, those small stacked bones that run from the base of the skull to the tailbone. Between each vertebra sits a disc, a cushion filled with a gel-like substance called the nucleus pulposus. During the day, that disc gets compressed by body weight. Sitting, standing, and moving. Water slowly gets pushed out of it. By evening, a person is actually slightly shorter than they were in the morning. This is completely normal. But during sleep, with the body horizontal and gravity no longer pressing straight down, those discs rehydrate. They absorb fluid back in like a sponge. The spine literally plumps back up overnight. This is one of the most important repair processes the body runs, and it happens quietly while the eyes are closed. But here is where the problem begins. After 8 hours of this rehydration, the discs are at their most swollen, their most pressurized, and in a certain sense, their most fragile state of the day. This is not widely understood, and it is the foundation of everything else in this video. When a person jumps out of bed quickly, swings the legs over, twists the back, bends forward to put on slippers, that sudden loading of a fully hydrated, pressure-filled disc is exactly the kind of stress that contributes to disc injury over time. The disc is not designed to handle heavy bending and twisting loads in this particular state. And yet millions of people do exactly this every single morning without thinking twice about it. This is where the confusion begins. Many people believe morning back stiffness is just a sign of aging. They accept it, push through it, and move on. The truth is, some stiffness in the morning is normal and even healthy. It reflects that rehydration process working properly. But sharp pain, deep aching, or stiffness that lingers for more than 20 to 30 minutes is often a sign that the morning transition from lying down to standing up is being handled in a way that is irritating the discs, the joints, or the surrounding muscles. The body is not failing. It is responding to stress it was not designed to handle in that particular state. Now let us talk about the hips, because this is where things get deeply interesting. The hip is one of the most powerful joints in the body. It connects the pelvis to the femur, the thigh bone, and it is responsible for nearly every major movement a person makes. Walking, standing, climbing stairs, getting out of a chair. Around the hip sits a group of muscles called the hip flexors. These muscles run from the lower spine across the front of the pelvis and attach to the top of the thigh. During sleep, when the body is lying flat or curled into a slight fetal position, these hip flexors are in a shortened, relaxed state. They have not been stretched or loaded for hours. When the body suddenly rises and begins walking without any preparation, those shortened muscles are immediately asked to do full-length, full-load work. Over time, this contributes to hip tightness, reduced range of motion, anterior pelvic tilt, where the pelvis tips forward and creates excess curve in the lower back, and that nagging hip flexor ache that many people over 50 describe as something they have simply learned to live with, but they do not have to live with it. And this is where 3 minutes makes all the difference. Before getting out of bed, or right at the edge of the bed, there are gentle movements that prepare the hip flexors, the lumbar spine, and the surrounding tissue for the demands of the day. A simple knee-to-chest hold, lying flat on the back, held gently for 20 to 30 seconds on each side, begins to lengthen the hip flexors and release compression from the lower lumbar joints. Not aggressively, not quickly, just a gentle, controlled pull toward the chest. This single movement communicates to the nervous system that the body is transitioning from rest to activity, and it triggers the surrounding muscles to begin activating properly. It is not dramatic, it is not difficult, but the cumulative effect, done every morning for weeks and months, is a measurable improvement in hip mobility, reduced lower back compression, and a significant reduction in that familiar morning stiffness that so many people have accepted as their new normal. But the real surprise comes next, and it involves something most people never connect to their morning routine at all: the grip. Grip strength is one of the most underestimated health markers in modern medicine. Study after study has shown that grip strength is not just a measure of how strong the hands are. It is a reflection of overall musculoskeletal health, neurological integrity, and even cardiovascular function. A landmark study published in The Lancet found that grip strength was a stronger predictor of cardiovascular death than blood pressure. Let that settle for a moment. The hands are quietly telling a story about the entire body, and most people are not reading it. Here is what actually happens inside the hand and forearm during sleep. The small muscles of the hand, the tendons of the fingers, the fascia, the thin connective tissue that wraps around every structure, all of it tightens during rest, just as the spine and hips do. Blood flow to the extremities slows down. The fluid dynamics in the joints of the wrist and fingers slow as well. The result is that classic morning stiffness in the hands, the difficulty making a full fist, the slight achiness in the knuckles, the fingers that feel thick or swollen first thing in the morning. For people with early arthritis or even just reduced joint health, this morning hand stiffness can feel quite significant. Now, here is where most people make a mistake. They wait for the stiffness to go away on its own. They wrap their hands around a coffee mug and figure the warmth will sort things out. And to some extent, it does, but passively, slowly, and incompletely. What the hand joints and forearm tendons actually respond to is gentle, deliberate movement. Slow finger extensions, opening the hand fully, spreading the fingers wide, then closing slowly, repeated 10 times on each hand, take less than 60 seconds and have a remarkable effect on synovial fluid distribution. Synovial fluid is the joint's own internal lubricant. It is produced by the joint lining and it coats the cartilage surfaces to reduce friction and nourish the surrounding tissue. Movement pumps this fluid throughout the joint space. Without movement, it pools and stagnates, which is precisely why a hand that has been still for 8 hours feels stiff, and a hand that has been gently moving for 2 minutes feels loose and ready. This connects directly to a myth that is extremely common, especially among older adults. The myth is this: stiffness in the joints in the morning is simply what happens when a person gets older, and there is nothing meaningful to be done about it beyond medication or waiting it out. This belief, while understandable, is quietly costing people years of joint comfort and functional independence. The truth is that joint stiffness, in the hips, the spine, the hands, is largely a fluid and circulation issue, not purely a structural one. Yes, cartilage changes with age. Yes, inflammation plays a role. But the degree of morning stiffness a person experiences is profoundly influenced by how well they transition the body from rest to movement. Age is not the enemy. Stillness is. And this brings up something that connects the spine, the hips, and the grip in a way that almost nobody discusses: the fascia. Fascia is the continuous web of connective tissue that runs throughout the entire body, wrapping around every muscle, organ, bone, and nerve. It is like a full-body interior suit beneath the skin. During sleep, fascia settles. It loses some of its fluid content and becomes slightly stiffer. When the body moves suddenly and forcefully after 8 hours of rest, fascia does not always respond well. It can tug, resist, or create that pulling sensation people often feel in the lower back or hip first thing in the morning. But here is what is remarkable about fascia. It responds extraordinarily well to slow, sustained movement. Not bouncing, not forcing, slow, deliberate motion held at the end of a comfortable range, paired with a full breath. This is what wakes the fascial system up gently, restores its hydration, and prepares the body to move freely and without resistance throughout the rest of the day. Now, here's why this matters even more after 50. As the body ages, fascia loses some of its natural elasticity and its water-binding capacity. This is a biological process that cannot be entirely stopped. But research shows that regular morning movement, even gentle movement lasting only 2 to 3 minutes, significantly slows this loss and maintains the pliability of fascia in ways that directly translate to better mobility, less joint pain, less risk of muscle strain, and better posture throughout the day. The people who age gracefully and remain physically independent well into their 70s and 80s are very often the people who have, knowingly or unknowingly, been doing something like this every single morning for years. The lumbar spine cannot be left out of this conversation because it ties everything together. The lower back takes on enormous loads every single day. 5 lumbar vertebrae stacked on top of each other, supported by muscles, ligaments, and those precious discs in between. After the overnight rehydration process, the lumbar discs are full of fluid and the surrounding muscles are cool and unactivated. The muscles of the lower back, particularly the multifidus and the erector spinae, are the primary stabilizers of this whole system. When they are cold and unengaged, the disc carries more load than it should during those first movements of the day. When they are warm and properly activated, they share the load beautifully and protect the disc from unnecessary stress. This is why a simple 30-second pelvic tilt, lying flat, gently pressing the lower back toward the mattress, holding for 5 seconds, releasing and repeating 6 to 8 times, is one of the most protective spinal movements a person can do and one of the most underused. It activates the multifidus, decompresses the facet joints along the spine, and signals the lumbar stabilizing system to engage before the full weight of standing is introduced. If that surprised you, the next point is even more important. And it is the big mistake that must be addressed directly, because it cancels the benefits of everything just described. The mistake is doing these morning movements too aggressively, too quickly, or while holding the breath. Many people hear about morning stretching and instinctively think they need to push into discomfort to make it effective. So they pull the knee hard to the chest, yank the spine into rotation, or press forcefully into a hip stretch while the body is still cold. This does the opposite of what is intended. An aggressive stretch on a cold, fully rehydrated disc triggers a protective muscle spasm response from the nervous system. The body senses threat and immediately contracts the surrounding muscles to guard the joint. This is the exact reason why some people feel worse after morning stretching than before. The soreness, the tightening, the new back ache. It is not the stretching that failed. It is the force that was applied at the wrong time. The key is gentleness. The movement should feel like a soft, respectful greeting to the body, not a demand placed upon it. No pain, no forcing the range, no aggressive holds, just slow, warm, intentional motion paired with full, relaxed breathing throughout. The breath is not separate from the movement, it is an integral part of it. Exhaling slowly during the gentle hold is what allows the nervous system to release tension rather than defend against it. Force triggers guarding. Gentleness triggers release. That distinction changes everything. Now here is the bonus tip that brings everything together, and it is something most people have genuinely never considered when thinking about morning joint health. The most powerful version of this 3-minute morning routine is done in combination with hydration. The spine, the hip joints, the fascia, and the synovial fluid of the hands are all heavily water-dependent systems. After 8 hours of sleep, the body is in a mild but real state of dehydration. Every system is slightly more sluggish, more stiff, and more reactive to physical stress when even mildly dehydrated. Drinking a full glass of water, not coffee, not juice, but plain water, before or immediately after the morning movement sequence gives the rehydrating discs, the fascial network, and the joint fluid systems the raw material they need to complete the overnight repair process properly. It is a small, entirely effortless addition that amplifies the effect of those 3 minutes in a way that is difficult to overstate. Water in the morning is not just beneficial for digestion or metabolism, though it is excellent for both. It is specifically and directly supportive of the structural systems, the spine, the hips, and the hands, that this entire video is about. Most people reach for caffeine first. The body is quietly asking for water first. Here is what it all comes down to. The hips, the spine, and the grip are three of the most important indicators of how a person will age. They determine whether getting out of a chair feels easy or frightening. They determine whether walking feels free or labored. They determine whether the hands remain tools of independence or become daily sources of frustration. And what influences the fate of all three, not more than any supplement, more than any single medical appointment, is what happens in those first 3 minutes of every morning. Not because 3 minutes is magic in isolation, but because 3 minutes done correctly every single day over months and years is a daily conversation the body has with itself. It is a signal that says the movement is continuing, the care is consistent, and this system is being maintained. The body, given that signal repeatedly, responds in kind. The stiffness that feels inevitable is often not. The weakness that feels like aging is often the accumulated result of patterns that can be changed. The grip that is loosening does not have to keep loosening at that rate. These are not irreversible facts of getting older. They are conditions influenced by habits, and habits are built one morning at a time. Take 3 minutes tomorrow. Just 3. Knee to chest, gentle pelvic tilt, slow finger extensions, full relaxed breathing, and a glass of water before anything else. That is the whole routine. Not complicated, not painful, not expensive. Just consistent. And consistency is the only ingredient that makes it work. Now, a question worth thinking about: how does the morning currently feel when first getting up? Is there stiffness in the hips or lower back those first few steps? Is there tightness in the hands or fingers that takes a while to ease up? Leave a comment below, because the answers shared by this community help shape what videos come next. And they remind every single person watching that what they are experiencing is not something to be ashamed of or ignored, but something that can genuinely be addressed. If this video was helpful, please give it a like. It takes 1 second, and it helps this information reach the people who need it most. Subscribe if this is the first time here, because videos like this come out regularly, and every one of them is designed to deliver real, practical, science-based health information to people who want to age well, stay strong, and remain independent for as long as possible. And if this topic felt important, the next video on what's sitting too long really does to the lower back, and the simple 4-minute reset that begins to reverse it, is the perfect one to watch next. Take care of that body. It is the only one there is, and it is absolutely worth 3 minutes every single morning.